Okay, welcome, Carrie. I'm so excited. You are the first of your kind as far as being in the restaurant business, right? So I'm really excited to talk about that. Um, if you would like to give a quick introduction, who you are, what time you did in the military, and then what you're doing now and how you got
Sure,
there.
sure, that'd be great. My name is Carrie Roeger. I live in the metro Atlanta area on the north side of town. I spent 5 years as a United States Marine. I was a Russian linguist in the Marine Corps, which is a little rare and very unusual job. Through that, I gained a lot of experience in leadership. But when I left the Marine Corps, I actually ended up in residential construction for about 18 years. And then today, I actually have a restaurant in Woodstock, Georgia, and that restaurant has been franchised. And so now I'm leading the franchise operation. So it's been a zigzag of a journey to get to a restaurant franchise.
Yeah, I could imagine. Um, okay, are you still fluent in Russian or?
No, no. Conveniently, I know how to swear in Russian. I can do that. I sometimes, if I'm listening to very basic conversation in Russian, I can maybe pick up a word or two. But I don't even say hello or goodbye when somebody says something to me in Russian like that. I don't have the confidence anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, how long did you do in the Marines again?
I did 5 years.
Okay.
With an Intel position, you go to school for an entire year, so you had to do an
Mhm.
extension on your contract. 5 years was plenty for me. I think I got everything I wanted to out of being a Marine, and of course, once a Marine, always a Marine. So it was good to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what year span were you in the Marines?
Oh, now you're going to age me. That was
Sorry, we
88.
gotta
It was
ask.
88 to 93. So I joined the Marine Corps fresh out of high school. I lived in a small town in northern Wisconsin and really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I needed to get out of that town. But since I didn't have a career path in mind, I didn't know, what I wanted to go to school to study. I didn't think it made sense to go to college. And so I started looking at the armed forces as an alternative and was originally going to join the Navy. Interestingly enough, the day that I had my appointment with the Navy recruiter was not there, but all the branches of service were in the same building. The Marine recruiter was there and he had me signed up in about 3 hours.
Yeah. Oh,
So the
that's so
Navy
cool.
lost the Navy lost out totally.
Yeah, my story was kind of opposite. So I wanted to go Marines first. I don't know. We have a couple decades in between when we spoke to recruiters, but the Marine recruiters were so fantastic, and they like really took time to like sit down with me, know what my like core values are, and then he would like tell me how all of these things that matter to me matter to the Marine Corps as well. And he just really knew how to like tug on every heartstring of yours to make you want to join the Marines. And it didn't feel salesy at all, and you could tell he like loved what he did. But I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be in the Marine band, and the gunny that was going to do my audition got caught in a snowstorm, and I
Mm.
was like, across the hall from the Marine Corps recruiter was the Navy, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll do the Navy then.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really cool because I actually auditioned for the band and was accepted in the band. But
Oh,
then
really?
when I did my ASVAB test and I scored so high on the ASVAB, I got a lot of pressure from my parents to let go of the band and do something a little bit bigger. Not that
Hmm.
it didn't do anything for me afterwards. It's not like I went and worked at the Pentagon or something. I could
Yeah.
have, but at that point, I really didn't want to. That wasn't what I wanted to continue to do. So that's pretty funny because yeah, I had auditioned and was accepted to the band.
Oh, very cool. What did you play?
Saxophone.
Okay, I was oboe.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Small world. It's crazy
Yeah.
how like
A lot of
there's so
commonalities.
much.
A couple years in between, but still a lot of commonalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Okay, so what did right after you left the Marine Corps, did you jump straight into trying to start your business, or what was the timeline as far as your transition to being a business owner?
So when I transitioned out of the military, I went back to Minnesota actually to go to school. Kind of funny story. After being in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for 5 years, I discovered how nice it is that it's not 40 below. So when I got to school in Minneapolis and it got to be around December, it was really cold. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I doing here? I don't need to do this. So I moved back to Camp Lejeune area, back to Jacksonville, and went to school at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. So that was the first evolution, is to get my degree. And then I've I started along my journey. I probably started about 9 different businesses, Kristen. And in the 90s, when I was transitioning out of the military, the veteran ecosystem was not like it is today. The
Mhm.
support that we have out here, the coaching, the teaching, the training, the mentorship from people who have created successful businesses, it wasn't available in the 90s. So a lot of the businesses I started didn't make it. Um,
Yeah.
because I was young and I was learning and things like that. So it wasn't until, let's see, I got out in 93 and it was 98 when we moved to Atlanta and I started working in a construction company and I worked there for 16 years. And it was 2015 when we started the restaurant. So there was a big gap of time when I did not
Mhm.
pursue any entrepreneurial opportunities because honestly, the construction company I was working with was very entrepreneurial. I was the first full-time employee that they hired. So it
Oh,
felt
very cool.
like, creating a business and building a business as an entrepreneur, but I was getting a
Mhm.
W-2. So it wasn't until 2015 that we took the leap of faith and opened a restaurant and really dove back into that entrepreneur career. And then in 2020, I had decided it was time for me to move on from the construction company I'd been working with. So I left there in January. And of course, we know what happened in 2020. I took a month off because, that's what you do after you leave a position for a long time. And then I started
Mhm.
interviewing. But by the time we got to March, every interview and every opportunity I had on the table, they called up and said, yeah, we're not doing any hiring right now because we had just shut down for COVID.
Yeah.
So from there, I went and got a residential contractor's license so that I could continue to build houses and have that sort of business while the restaurant was working. And then it was after the after Georgia really opened back up after COVID is when I really started thinking about franchising the restaurant. So I never did go back and get another job. I just stayed fully engaged with the restaurant and then built the franchise as well.
Okay. Um, so what year did your restaurant start again?
So we started in 2015. We'd actually been in Las Vegas, and there's a real long story of how we got there. Um, I went to Las Vegas every year for the Builder Show, and so every year I would
Mhm.
bring my husband along, and we would just play in Las Vegas for a couple days after the show was over. Well, in 2015, we had been alerted to a restaurant in Las Vegas called the Leatherneck Club Bar and Galley, and
Oh,
I
cool.
will promote this company all day long because they were fantastic. We found our way there, and when we walked in the door, we didn't even hardly sit down, and somebody had already bought us a beer.
Mhm.
And there was a group of older guys that were sitting at a long table planning a big trip to Paris Island. I walked in the door, and they knew that women were trained in Paris Island, so immediately I had to join the conversation. But we just really felt connected and felt like we belonged there.
Mhm.
And it inspired a dream in us, Kristen, to build something like that back in our hometown. A
Yeah.
place where veterans could feel connected, where they could find other veterans, where they felt like they had a sense of belonging. And so we came home from that trip, which was in January of 2015. And it was really fun because my husband's a retired Marine as well. So, we have this whole Marine thing going. And we would kind of go up and down. Like at one point I would be like, yeah, we totally have to do this. And he's like, are you crazy? We don't know anything about what we're doing because we have no
Yeah.
restaurant experience.
No one
And then
does.
like the next week he would be like, oh yeah, we can totally figure this out. I'm like, no, are you nuts? What are we doing? And so we kind of vacillated like this. And long about June, we came to a point in time where we both decided we're going to do this. And so we started working on it and we found a location. We got ourselves in the location. And by August, we opened the doors. So it started
Wow.
from concept in June and went to open in August.
That
So
is
it was a
crazy. That's
whirlwind. Yeah,
fast.
it was nuts.
Yeah. Well, that's great. You already had that foundation set before COVID so
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
hopefully it
We
could,
had plenty of years under our belt before COVID, which
yeah.
was truly a blessing because when COVID happened, the community really rallied around us to support us and keep us open. There would
Mhm.
be days when at 11 o'clock when we opened the doors, the phone would ring, and someone in the community would say, "I want to send $100 worth of chicken wings over to the fire department," or "I want to send
Oh,
a hundred
cool.
dollars of chicken wings over to the police department," or "Can you send 30 sandwiches up to the hospital? I want to feed the crew at the hospital today." And we'd take their credit card number over the phone, package it all up, and go ahead and go deliver it for them. And so it was things
Mhm.
like that that the community did that kept us open in 2020. And it was really cool is at that point in time, by the time we got to the end of 2020, 2020 had been our most profitable year at that point in time.
Wow.
So yeah, so instead of what you hear about the restaurant stories through COVID, we were pretty much the opposite because the community had just rallied around us so much to help us succeed.
I think the businesses that survived and thrived during COVID were the ones that adapted and figured out a way to still keep their doors open without actually letting people through the doors. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And we are really a social, what I would call a social enterprise, because we're bigger than just the burgers and fries and the sandwiches that we feed.
Yeah.
Because we do take care of our veterans in the community. We take care of our homeless veterans. We do a lot of tremendous outreach. And so that makes us more of a social enterprise than anything. And I think too, when you look across the board, the businesses that survived COVID, a lot of them had secondary meetings that really, gave back to the community and did something special. And I think that made a difference too.
Yeah. I was going to say, you built that community, and especially once you build a community of like supporters and followers for your business, they're going to ride with you till the end, one way or another. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I can't believe you got your whole business running in 2 months. That's insanely fast did you already purchase an existing restaurant and all you had to do was just basically put Rally Point Grill on in that building?
So we did. We purchased a little restaurant up the street from us that was struggling, and that was key. They were struggling, and so they wanted out. And so we purchased them, and we just did some remodeling. And when we first opened in 2020, the name of our company was actually Semper Fi Bar and Grill, because cool. Marines, that's about as far as we can think, right? But it worked out really well. And it wasn't until when I started working on the franchise in 2020 that we realized we needed to change the name. But interestingly enough, we've been open for 8 years under the name Semper Fi Bar and Grill. And even after 8 years, I still have people who will come to the door finally and say, I've never been because I wasn't sure if I was going to be welcome, which is the total opposite of what we were trying to accomplish. And even, it says public welcome all over everything. And surprisingly, Kristen, I will even have folks that are in the Navy or the Army or whatever will be like, well, I'm not a Marine. Can I come in? And that barrier is a real problem. So when we switched over to the franchising, we created the Rally Point Grill. And so now our first location here in Woodstock is actually moving to a new building. And so we're rebranding the company as we move as well. So we'll be Rally Point Grill here in Woodstock as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So, it's been a real interesting journey and a real learning journey. I never expected that using a name Semper Fi Bar and Grill would actually be a barrier to entry. Never crossed my mind, but we figured it out pretty early on and just never had really the courage to change it. Because if you ever think about, like, you have your company and you have your company name, if you were ever to decide to change the name, it sort of feels like changing the name of your firstborn child.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. But the feedback we've gotten on the name of Rally Point Grill has been very, very popular. And we feel really good about that. It was the right thing to do. And even in the franchise world, one of the biggest barriers to entry was in the franchise. As we go to franchising, with a name like Semper Fi Bar and Grill, we'd be really hard pressed to sell it to somebody who was an Army veteran because it's very Marine centric. And so as it stands, our first franchise is an Army veteran.
Oh, very cool.
So removing that barrier to entry made it easy for him to purchase the company. And his wife is also a Navy veteran. So it's another veteran couple that are running the first franchise.
Yeah, I totally understand the Semper Fi Bar and Grill, because if I saw that posted on there, I'd be like, that's where all the Marines hang out, and I'm probably going to go somewhere else.
Exactly.
But that's great that you still adapted and you had that like community already existing pool of customers that were going to support you through the change, and it seems like it worked well for you. So that's great.
And the feedback has it's been fantastic. I think everybody really gets it. And what I love about it is the name and the logo. We're specifically designed to speak to the veteran, but yet it's subtle enough that I don't think the community is going to feel discouraged from coming because of, like they are with the Semper Fi Bar and Grill.
Yeah.
And we're doing a lot of PR and a lot of marketing about the name change right now, just to help the community understand and see that we're changing the name for them.
Yeah.
To make sure that they feel welcome and come in.
Yeah. Personally, growing up, if there was a business or a restaurant, like say we're on a street of restaurants in a new town we're visiting, and we see all of these restaurants in front of us, and one of them is heavily like you can tell they're veteran owned and supporting the military, we're going to go in that one. And I'm sure a
Right.
lot of people are going to do the same. And it's just a different atmosphere that you walk into as well. And yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to take a road trip to come visit sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, going back to when you enlisted, what was that like being a female Marine in the
Um,
80s?
the journey, well, there was a pretty big hiccup in my career as a female Marine, and I'll talk about that with you. But the Marines at that time, and even still today, were very segregated when they're with their training. So,
Mm-hmm.
joining the Marine Corps, I went to Parris Island and trained in the battalion with all the women Marine recruits. So, I mean, it was a very interesting journey. The intel field is small. Obviously, we're not surrounded by grunts and infantry and things like that. So the mentality is a little bit different. So
Yeah.
I really didn't. I feel like I was accepted. I feel like I belonged. Sometimes I felt like I still had to fight for that position of belonging. I as funny as we spent a lot of time training as linguists. We had to keep our skills up, so we spent a
Yeah.
lot of time training, and we'd have a lot of conversations and chit chat and things like that. And I remember telling the guys that y'all can talk about whatever you want to in front of me. There's just a few words I don't want you to use. And so I ran through just a couple words. I said, if you'll just keep your language so that it doesn't include a few of these words, and it wasn't many, I mean, you can
Mm-hmm.
cuss all you want, I don't care. Tell your stories, have a good time, count me as one of you and whatnot. And so that took a little time to kind of train them to accept me and not feel like they had to change their language or their stories or who they were. But I mean, it was an interesting journey. I had two things happen. Um, One was when Desert Shield and Desert Storm started, we as a battalion were notified that we were going to go to, I think we were going to go to Kuwait. And so as a battalion, we did all the work to gear up and get ready to go. I mean, I even remember thinking about going to the tattoo shop and getting the meat tag tattoo on my ribs that had my information, just in case. We did the power of attorneys. I remember calling my mom and telling her that I was going to get deployed. And, in that period of time, it had been a long time since a lot of units were deployed to a war
Yeah.
front environment. And so it was really kind of scary, but it's what we trained for.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were in formation with the buses out front, our gear packed, ready to go. And our commanding officer came up and he called the entire battalion to attention. He asked all the women Marines to fall out and form a different formation. And we did. And then he turned around and he put all the men on the bus and he left us home. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, that was a few years ago, okay? And he got away
Yeah.
with it. Yeah, I was really pissed for a long time because that just was not cool at all. But I can look back today, Kristen, and realize that though he may have done that and slighted my military career, he probably saved a life. Because
Mm-hmm.
all of the rest of our veteran friends who went to Desert Shield and Desert Storm have some serious health issues because of the burn pits and things like that. And I was protected from that because I wasn't allowed to go. So, I mean, you kind of got to balance it. And the older
Mm-hmm.
you get and the further away you get from it, the more you can
Yeah.
appreciate that, you know? And the other thing that happened, which was really interesting, and actually, women in the military have been breaking glass ceilings for many, many years. And we're still breaking glass ceilings today. And I'm always cheering when I see another woman get into a position that wasn't open for women before. So in
Yeah.
1991, I think it was. Yeah, it was 91. And that was when most of my battalion was deployed overseas. We had an opportunity to fill some seats at jump school to jump out of airplanes, airborne school.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And of course, in the military, when you have budgets and you have allocations and things like that, if you don't use them, you lose them the next year. Well, our battalion didn't want to take the chance of losing any seats to airborne school, so I was afforded the opportunity to go. So I went to airborne school down in Fort Benning, and we did our jumps, and I came back with the silver jump wings. You've seen them, you know what they look
Yeah.
like. The Army
Very
wears them
cool.
too. Well, when I came back to my unit, they continued. We had a small intel recon unit within our organization, and so they had opportunities to continue to jump out of aircraft after I came back to my unit. So I went with them. and I was taken along because I was jump qualified, and so I did an additional series of jumps out of the different aircraft and ended up qualifying for the Navy Marine Corps Gold Jump Wings,
Oh,
which
very cool.
is the upgrade, of course, from the basic parachutist. So I was awarded the Navy Marine Corps Gold Jump Wings, and then I would get a lot of very strange looks around the base because at that time there weren't women who were wearing them. And I'll never forget that one time I was over at the dental office, and a senior staff NCO came up and he got in my face about the gold jump wings as if I was running around the base with stolen valor. I mean, how stupid would that be, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was, 25 minutes later, we were in the CO's office, and that senior staff NCO was there with my CO, and they were trying to calm him down and figure out that it's okay for me to wear these. Well, as it turns out, at that time in the 90s, the Marine Corps order still had very gender specific information in it. And the Marine Corps order for jump billets was it said the assignment of male Marines to jump billets. And so the senior staff NCO's position was, I am not a male Marine, therefore I should not have been in a jump billet, therefore I don't rate to wear those gold jump wings. And they took them away.
Wow.
Yeah. So kudos to my commanding officer. It was about 6 months later, I think, that he called me in his office and said, we have had the Marine Corps order changed. There is no gender in the assignment of Marines to jump billets anymore. Therefore, you qualify to wear your gold jump wings, and we're going to re-award them to you tomorrow in a ceremony.
Oh,
and
awesome.
So they did another ceremony and they put them back on. There's an article in the Navy Times. There was an article that was done in the Navy Times. It's on our wall in our restaurant. That talks about the whole process, about what happened and things like that. And so, as a woman in the Marine Corps, I feel like I did my job because I broke another glass ceiling for other women Marines that were in the Marine Corps. So it was kind of a cool thing. It was difficult. Don't get me wrong. I felt like a lot of bullying and a lot of harassment and things like that. So it was difficult, but it was worth it because I broke that ceiling. And so now there's women behind me who have gold jump wings.
Yeah, that is awesome. Man, while you're telling your story, I think about like little things that would happen to me when I was in that were just kind of like blown off because I was a woman and I would get livid over like, I need 3 strong men to help me carry these chairs. And I was like, a woman can't carry this chair. And that would send me into this like rage. And I didn't care what rank you were. I was calling you out. And if you were higher ranking than me, I'd be respectful. But, and I would try to carry this chair that I literally couldn't. It was bigger than me, but just to prove a point that I'm going to try.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
yeah.
Something as simple as a chair would set me off, and taking away your jump wings. Oh, if I was in your shoes, it's a different time, but
it was not easy. That's for sure.
So glad that he did the right thing and got it fixed for you. That's amazing. Was it the same skipper that sent you or cut you off from deployment, or a different one at this point?
Same one.
Oh, wow.
I know, right?
Yeah. So I wonder if his mindset to leaving you guys behind was maybe I don't know. Sometimes I think that a little bit of the leadership training that I received as far as like making those hard decisions is like women do have to, give birth or not have to, but I'm wondering if that's like a mindset he had, but I would imagine back then it was not from a place of love.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I thought about it quite a while. Like, why did he do that? And I think at the end of the day, the only thing I can say is he made that decision because he could. Yeah. Today you can't make that decision, right? Today you have to take everybody. I mean, if you did that, the world would be turned upside down and people would be livid. But I think he made that decision at that time simply because he could, and that's all that's to it. And so, but it's long since gone, right? And I'm actually thankful that it worked out that way, because a lot of my friends who came back, they have illnesses, they have children who have illnesses, and we were protected from all of that. Because at that same time, my husband was a combat engineer, and he actually was deployed to the Philippines because there was a huge volcanic eruption. And so they needed to go to the Philippines and kind of help the Philippines dig out from all of the ash and everything. So he avoided the whole journey over to Desert Shield and Desert Storm as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you used, after you got out of the Marines, you used your GI Bill to go to college, or?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. So
Did
I
you have
did.
any issues with that?
So I had, well, I mean, you got to remember now that it was the previous GI. It's not the post 9/11 GI. So it's a different
Right.
GI Bill. But while I was on active duty, particularly because we were stuck in garrison, I went ahead and started going to school while I was on active duty. And I ended up with an associate's degree before I left active duty. So then I
Awesome.
used my GI Bill to get my degree, and I got a degree in finance from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. I had a little bit of money left on the degree, so I've done personal training, and things, and just whatever other certifications I could do just to use up the money. And then in 2018, I went ahead and went to MBA school. So I went to the Jack Welch Management Institute for MBA school and graduated in 2020, which was, of course, a non-graduation, but I still got my diploma, and that's what counts.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
But by then, my GI Bill had already been expired. And then in 2020, because there was a lot of help and a lot of government assistance in 2020, there was another program that came up that I was able to go back to school and get a certificate in finance just to continue my education. So I have to say I'm very happy with the educational benefits that I've gotten from going into the military service and being able to use those.
Yeah.
Health benefits, that's a little bit of a different story. With being married to a retired Marine, we have really, really good health insurance, but that's because of his retirement. It's not from my veteran status at all. We've done the disability claims and all of that. And then, some things are denied and you don't feel like they should be denied. And then it's such a pain to try to fight stuff like that. So we haven't really done a lot of fighting either. It is what it is, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's, I'm still waiting on my results from my disability claim. And what day is today? October 18th. I have been out for like 45 days. But the VA website says it takes an average of 96 days for them to make a decision right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just hurry up and wait like we always do.
That's all you can do. And then once you get what their decision is, you won't agree with it. And then you've got to go through the appeals process. But what I would tell you, Kristen, is, being removed from that so far versus you being just fresh out is stay with it and stay with the fight, because in the long run, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling myself.
It's what you deserve. When you joined the Navy, you signed a blank check and said that you will give everything, including your life. And so it's what you deserve. And so, just stay with it. And I would tell you, as a young veteran as well, get involved in veteran organizations, because that's your tribe of people. That's people who understand you, who know, without even having a conversation, they know what you've done and they know what you've been through, and they know how you're programmed to think. And so get involved with those veteran organizations, and don't be scared off by, the older Vietnam veterans, Korean War veterans. Some of them are pretty grumpy and pretty angry still, and don't be scared off by those. Just get in there and get involved and do things.
Yeah. Yep. This fall has been really busy for me in my business, but over the winter, I plan on kind of settling a little bit and trying to, find my community. This podcast is a huge community builder for me too, but it's all virtual.
Right. Yeah. You need your local ones. And there's a lot of, like, around here, we have a lot of people who just have created gatherings for veterans that's not even under a flag of a VFW or an American Legion or anything like that. They're just like using the internet, particularly social media, and saying, hey, where's all the veterans? Let's get together on Monday night at such and such place or whatever. And just these real impromptu meetings to make those connections, because the veteran, like I said earlier, the veteran community and the ecosystem in the veteran community is so different today than it was when we got out. And if you don't take advantage of it, shame on you.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm still in the, I live in the town next to the base that I separated from. Like, I haven't moved. So all my past coworkers are still 5 miles away. And then it's a huge government contractor base too. So everyone's retired. Everyone's a veteran in this town. So
then you're in a very good ecosystem then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what other businesses did you start? I would love to hear about the what'd you say, 7 others?
Well, let me think. So, what's interesting is um, things like ZipRecruiter and Indeed and all of those job hunting type pages. I
Mhm.
actually started one of those shortly after I got out, and the concept was to create a page where I could connect veterans with veteran-friendly companies that were looking to hire veterans. And again, the ecosystem wasn't like it was, and it wasn't so much of a push like it is today that companies really wanted to hire veterans. So it was a little bit more complicated and harder to do. But I had started that one, and um, the internet was fresh as well, right? So it wasn't nearly as sophisticated as it was today. So there was a lot of obstacles and a lot of hurdles. And eventually I just decided I didn't want to learn the internet as much as it required. And I
Yeah.
didn't have any money to be able to hire somebody who could. So I kind of walked away from that one. We did direct sales for quite a while. We were in a direct sales organization for quite a while, which was really good because it actually taught us a lot and prepared us for franchising. So
Yeah.
I did, well, I have the construction company. I did, I think, what else did I do? A lot of them were just so, I did personal training. So after I did my personal training course, I started a personal training company. And I don't even know why I quit that. I think I quit that to actually go back to full-time work and, a W-2 job. So I quit that. But yeah, I did that because that was after my daughter was born and I stayed home with her for about 4 years. So I did some personal training in there. I did a virtual assistant for a while, doing a lot of online work with students right here at the university. So I would sometimes I would write their papers. Sometimes I would check their papers. Do some tutoring and things like that, whatever it needed. And so those were just a lot of little really small things just to generate some
Mhm.
side income.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did that was actually really successful while my daughter was little is I was doing a lot of eBay selling. So on
Oh,
the
cool.
weekends, I would take her and we would go out to yard sales and buy toys because that was the age she was. And so that's what I understood was toys. So we would go out and buy toys. We would buy play school toys. We'd buy Legos. We'd buy, like, you remember those plastic uh, playground sets that used to have in the backyard
Yeah.
that could be taken apart, put together? Well, we would buy those and I would bring those home and scrub them up and clean them up and then turn around and resell them for more money. And I did that for about 2.5 years and really made a lot of money with doing that.
Mhm.
So most of the businesses I had, I mean, some of them could have been really huge, but most of them I would call them side gigs
Yeah.
until we got serious and started the restaurant.
Very cool. Um, do you think your education, like your finance and business like degrees helped you with your business, or do you think there's
No,
like certain aspects of them that helped and certain that you think are a waste of time or
no, I 100%. The finance degree was good, but what's interesting about the finance degree, and I'll tell you this, this has been really interesting. So I did the finance degree, and that was in the early '90s, and then I did that certificate of finance again because I was trying to learn how to find funding for my business. And so the finance degree and the certificate of finance did nothing for that. It
yeah.
was totally a waste of time. It was totally 100% corporate. Like if you were going to go into a large company like Ford Motor Company or whatever, and you were going to work in their finance department. That's what those finance degrees did for me. So those did not help one way, shape, or form in terms of moving my business forward. The MBA has been really, really worth it because it's a well rounded, deep education in all aspects of running a business, from human resources to marketing to product development, operational efficiencies. And it covers all of those things. But there too, the MBA was missing that entrepreneurial finance piece of it.
Mhm.
So I think that we're probably a lot better off and a lot more successful in our business because I've got the education as opposed to not. And I think the difference in that, Kristen, is the amount of time it takes to be successful.
Mhm.
So I think anybody can start a business without having, 6 degrees or having a ton of education. And you learn, and even still, I today learn by a school of hard knocks. I haven't learned everything from my education. And so I don't want to send the message that you need to have an education before you start a business because you don't. But I
Right.
think the difference is sometimes when you have an education, you can accelerate through the challenges and the obstacles a little bit faster as opposed to not having an education. So,
Right.
yeah, but the
And
education, it definitely helped.
there's so much free education out there too. Like you would be amazed what you can learn if you just really take some time on YouTube or reading a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I
I
know
mean,
that there's a company called Coursera, and
mhm.
Coursera has a program where veterans can take classes for free. So
Oh,
as an
very cool.
entrepreneur, I mean, if I was going to go back and do it again right now today, without having the skill sets that I have as an entrepreneur, I would be taking all of those classes because it's free. And like
Yeah,
you said, you can
100%.
you can
Write
get
that
on
down.
YouTube and you can get somebody on YouTube to teach you almost anything you want to learn. And then webinars, like a lot of coaches and consultants and things do webinars. And one thing I've learned about webinars is if you listen to enough webinars from one person, they eventually tell you 90% of their secrets
Yeah,
because they need content, right?
yeah.
And so if you listen to one webinar, you don't get all their secrets. But if you
Mhm.
listen to a whole bunch of their webinars, most coaches and consultants will end up sharing 90% of their secrets just through their webinars if you just listen to them.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I go to the franchise store over in Evans, it's a 2.5 hour ride. When I go to that franchise store, I queue up 5 hours worth of podcasts before I even hit the road. And that's my study time and that's what I listen to. And I
Mhm.
think that the information is so readily available that, a veteran who is stuck today trying to figure out how to do a business or what they want to do, or a person who's got an obstacle and they can't figure out how to get over it, I think they're just not trying because the
Yeah.
resources are there. All you got to just
Oh,
go find
absolutely. Yeah.
it. Yeah.
There's this educator that I'm a really big fan of, and I'm in the creative industry. Sorry if that dinged. That was supposed to be on Do Not Disturb. Um, an educator in the creative industry that I really love what he teaches. And he straight up said one day in his podcast, he was like, if you listen to every single podcast that I have, and then, download all of my free guides and listen to my Facebook lives, I will teach you everything that everything that you need to know in my coaching program. It's just a
Hmm.
matter if you want to do the digging yourself, or if you want me to lay it out in front of you, you can pay $3,000 and I
Right.
will. And he
Right.
said, but I'm teaching you everything that I know. It's just broken up and it's up to you if you want to. And it just comes down to like, do you have more time or money? And
Yep.
I was like, shoot, I'm going to dig through all of your stuff. And, whenever I come to a roadblock, I'll just search it in your podcast. And
Yep.
it's been
Absolutely.
helpful. Yeah.
And then, there's the veteran ecosystem too in the business world is so strong. There's so much training and so much education, so much information out there. But more so than that, what I'm seeing, which is super powerful, is mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
So veterans who own businesses are giving back to younger veterans already, or not necessarily younger, but just newer business owners, and they're mentoring them, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that, is really hard to find in the world in
Yeah.
general, no matter what industry you're in, let alone finding a veteran who's a successful business owner. And so there too, there's just so much help out there and so much information that if you go digging for it, you will find it. There are
Yeah.
5 or 6 really main organizations right now that are working with veterans in business. That if veterans don't go find them and get involved with them, then
Mm-hmm.
they're doing what military does. We're doing it the hard way, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just not willing to ask for help or accept help, and we just do it the hard way. But you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to do that anymore.
Yeah. When I was in like the first appointment for my VA claim, and I was kind of being like, she was just asking me like, does this hurt? What's your pain rate? Like, what's your pain scale for this? And I was being pretty modest about everything. And she was like, she just like slammed her laptop shut and she was like, I'm sick and tired of these veterans not telling me when they hurt because you guys have been conditioned your whole career to not
Hmm.
ask for help. And she was
Hmm.
like, this is your time. If you have the slightest inconvenience, you better tell me it's destroying your life. And,
Hmm.
um, you know, her giving me that hard talk just it goes beyond the medical side. It's
Yep.
just like you are on your own now, kind of, and you have to be willing to ask for help, and that is a hard pill to swallow in my less than 2 months that I've been out. But you are
Well,
so right. Yeah.
I've been out 30 years, and
Hmm.
that stuff is still ingrained in us. And it took me a long time to ask for help. But once I started to ask for help, it has been unbelievable how much it has grown my business just
Yeah.
by asking for help. And you're absolutely right. We are conditioned to keep our mouth shut. And we're conditioned just to drive on, no matter what the obstacle, no matter what the situation, and just press forward without, sometimes without backing up and taking a look at things, right? Because we were also in the position where we were told this is what we're doing.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's no questions asked. You just go do that. And it's hard for us as veterans to back up and realize that life doesn't have to be that way. That you
Hmm.
can be pushing towards something and running into obstacle, 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 and you can actually stop banging your head against the wall. You can
Yeah.
actually back up and look, and maybe there's a way around the wall or a way over the wall. But we're really not conditioned to do that. And so there's a whole new learning curve as you transition and realize that we have different ways of being able to do things, but those things that we were taught in the military also make us super strong and
Yeah.
super powerful. It's just learning for you, like especially for you being fresh out now, it's learning to find the balance between how I was trained and how the world really functions, right?
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people, I tell this to a lot of people is when we join the military, most of us are 18 years old. And so we're in the military from 18 to 22, 18 to 24, some people older than that, but every one of us who joined the military under the age of 20, we learned what life was about under the lens of being in the military. And
Yeah.
that forms who we are for eternity. Whether you got out 45 days ago or you got out 30 years ago, that's still in each and every one of us because that's when your brain really forms and that's when you become
Yeah.
an adult and that's when you become mature. And so where your brain was formed, you became an adult, and you became mature under the lens of the military. And that will forever impact how you make decisions and how you live your life.
Hmm.
So I think, the sooner we can realize that and realize how that impacts our thinking, the stronger we are.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you worded it way better than I could ever articulate to my friends, but the you we do like grow up in the military,
Hmm.
and I learned how to be kind of an adult. I think I'm relearning how to be an adult all over
Yep.
again now.
Hmm.
But it's like I in the military I was stuck in this narrow hallway, and now that I'm out there's no walls at all and I can see everything around me kind of, and I'm just like, this is everything that's going on, and you are just
Hmm.
in this like micro bubble of
Right.
military, and
Yep.
there's very little um it's just very, you have blinders on kind of, and now that I'm out I'm just, it's like you're figuring out who are you when you don't
Hmm.
have these walls telling you where to go, like this strict hallway to walk down. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So it can be very, very challenging to make the adjustment. I'll tell you, one of the most fun things that happened in our transition over the years was the realization that you could quit a job.
Yeah.
Because in the military, you're stuck. You can't
Hmm.
quit. I mean, you can try to ask for transfers and things like that, but they often don't work out.
Hmm.
But I will never forget shortly after my husband retired and we moved here to Woodstock and he was working, I don't know, he was working at some car dealership for something. And he called me like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and he was supposed to be working. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm on my way home. I'm like, um, why are you on your way home? He's like, because I quit. I'm like, you did what? He was like, quit.
We
I'm
don't
like,
do that.
oh my God. I said, how did that feel? He goes, I can't even tell you how exciting it was to realize that I could actually quit. And I set the keys on the counter and I said, this job is not for me. I'm leaving. And so we had this huge celebration about having the freedom to
Yeah.
quit a job. It seems like
Hmm.
such a little thing, but to the point of when you leave home at 18, you just left high school. You've hardly had any jobs whatsoever. You go into an environment where you don't have the ability to quit, and all of a sudden you have freedom, and that freedom extends all the way to being able to quit a job. How
Hmm.
cool is that? So it was
Yeah.
this really weird celebration that we learned that actually we have the freedom. We can quit a job if we don't like it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Never crossed
Absolutely.
my mind, right?
Yeah, I traveled to Europe at the end of September, and when I got on the plane, I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't have to ask anyone for permission to be on this plane, and there
Mm-hmm.
was no leave request and no like um filing with like the embassy or all of the security stuff that you have to do with the
Yep.
Navy." And I was like, "This feels so good."
Yeah, it's just kind of reminds you of these new levels of freedom.
Mhm.
But I have a healthy respect for all of the rules that we had in the military, and
Yeah,
I understand why we had them, and I
yeah,
get that. But
absolutely.
boy, I tell you what, when those shackles are off, and you start to realize what the world is really like
Hmm.
outside of the narrow wall of the military, it's a pretty amazing world. You could the
Yeah,
freedoms that you can just do things is very cool.
yeah. It is.
Yeah.
um, okay, so the last two questions that I ask everyone are just your take or your advice to any woman thinking about joining the military. What like words of wisdom would you give them? And then any woman thinking about starting a business.
So I think for today's generation of women joining the military, I think the sky is the limit out there. You can do whatever you want to in the military nowadays. There's not a lot of things
Yeah.
holding you back. I do know that we still have a lot of challenges in the military um, between men and women. There's some old school thinking in there, but I think that if you join the military as a woman, you can still be a woman.
Yeah.
You can still be pretty. You can still, you can still do girly things. You can still be that. I don't think the pressure is there anymore to try to conform to a man's world. And so
Right.
I think that that's something to think about as you join the military. Now, in the Marines it might be a little more. You might have a little more, pressure to be joining a man's world, but I know a number of women Marines that are very feminine and they still embrace their womanhood, and I think that
Yeah.
that is just really important to be able to do, so don't succumb to the pressure of trying to be one of the guys. And I think too, there's so many opportunities in the military for women. I just think it's a great place to go, and I love to see our young people going in the military. Owning a restaurant now, I have a couple different perspectives on life, and I tell people today, I think that when kids graduated from high school, they should go to one of three places. They should be in the military for 2 years, they should be a front of house server in a restaurant for 2 years, or they should go in
Hmm.
the Peace Corps for 2 years. Because each one of those things teaches you so much about how to function in the world, right?
Yeah.
And of course, in the restaurant business, we see a lot of people who are just rude and just, they don't act correct. It's just bad.
Hmm.
You see the greatest in people, and sometimes you see the worst in people. And I always feel like, well, if that person actually would have spent 2 years in a serving position, they'd probably be a little more polite and a little more understanding because they know what it's like. Um, so I think that going in the military as a young person is a really really good idea.
I
It
agree. Yeah.
sets a really good base for you. But I think the opportunities that are available in the military are worth going. I mean, you can get your degree while you're in the military. You have your GI Bill. You have an opportunity to meet people from all over the world. You can go places. You can do things. You can learn something new. You get paid to learn something new.
Yeah.
It just the check boxes, right? Just check off all the
Hmm.
boxes. You get in really good shape. I mean, you get fed sometimes decent food,
Yeah.
but all of your needs are actually taken care
You're
of
at
for the
least
first
fed.
couple of
Yeah.
years. Yeah. So I think I still think it's a really good idea for women to join the military. And then in terms of women veterans who are thinking about starting a business, I would say find the resources and find the help. Don't go it alone. It's okay to have your idea, but also be willing to share your idea with others and understand that they want to help you,
Hmm.
not steal your idea. I think
Yeah.
that was a hard hurdle for me finding help with all of my businesses is I was afraid to tell somebody about my business because I thought they would steal it. Where the truth is today, I'm in the opposite position where if somebody comes to me and needs help with their business, I want to know what their business is so I can help them.
Hmm.
But I have a full plate. I'm not interested in stealing their business. I don't care what it is. I don't care
Yeah.
if they have got the greatest new invention in the world and it's going to make $1 gazillion. I don't have time to steal it. I just want to
Yeah.
help you build your business.
Hmm.
So I think, the message is ask for help, find the help, get involved in the organizations out there that are coaching, teaching, training, and mentoring veterans to run their businesses.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. And actually, there's a lot of money out there for grants too.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And where can people find you, like website, social media, any of those things?
So if you want to check out the website about the restaurant and the franchise, you can go to rallypointgrill.com. Grill has an E on the end of it. We are on social media. You can search your Facebook and your Instagram for Rally Point Grill franchising. You can also see our pilot store at Semper Fi Bar and Grill on social media. And then you can find me on LinkedIn at Carrie Roeger, Roeger. Please, feel free to connect with me, reach out to me if there's anything I can do to help you. Absolutely, I'm 100% in. Building a network has been really, really powerful, and so if it's something I can't help with, maybe that I have somebody on my LinkedIn page that I know I can send you to that might be able
Yeah.
to help. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Kristen.
Of course.